My name is Andrei Strugov. I'm from the Faculty Development Center at the University College, and the center is here to provide you with professional development opportunities, to connect you to a wider teaching community, and to foster idea exchange. Each one of you has a lot of valuable ideas, and we're kind of a marketplace where you can throw in and somebody will pick it up. Today's session is not the one that we planned at the beginning of the semester. It is organized per your request, per faculty request, as an outcome of one of our previous sessions on student engagement. At that particular session, my dear friend Tom Giordano, he's an associate professor of accounting at UMA. He was one of the co-presenters, and he had probably 5 minutes to talk to. And everybody got interested in his ideas and his teaching approaches, but unfortunately he didn't have enough time to present. So everybody said, okay, let's make a separate session with Tom. We want to take a close look on what he's doing. And you demanded, and we organized a separate session, and your voice was heard, and here he is, Tom Giordano, live. Today, Tom will demonstrate how he uses one of the newest tools that appeared in our teaching toolbox just recently. The name of the tool is very deceptive. It's called Torah Video Quiz. However, it's not just a quiz. Its functionality goes far beyond than that. It's a great student engagement tool. It's a wake-up call for your students who are falling asleep while watching your videos. It may become a thought-provoking tool for your students if you choose this functionality for them. So it's not just a quiz. With this tool, you are in the pilot seat. You choose the functionality you need at the moment in your quiz, in your course. So in the next few minutes, while Tom is presenting, please keep your minds open while watching and listening to him. Please think how you might be able to use this Kaltura video quiz, this tool, student engagement tool, in your courses, in your discipline, in your particular topic. We will be stopping for questions. Tom will stop for questions and might interrupt, also ask you for feedback. So we want this session to be interactive. It's very short. We will end at 12:30 sharp. The session will be recorded, and Tom, the floor is yours.
Yeah, so again, my name is Tom Giordano, and I've been at this teaching game for a while, and the last 7 years or so I've been involved with making videos for my classes, and yeah, that has been a graduated process over time, and I've learned a lot. I haven't arrived yet, it's still a learning process, but I'm feeling really good about this Kaltura tool and embedding these quizzes into modules. And this is the first one that I've developed, and yeah, what I'll do today is kind of talk through my learning theory and how I go about making these videos, and we'll open it up for questions along the way.
Okay, great. So I'm going to share my screen, and I'm going to be a student in Tom's class. So I'm going into the Faculty Lunch and Learn course in Blackboard, and I'm going to course content and faculty show and tell webinar interactive video. And we have a little description here. I know that some of you have already watched this video and taken the quiz, but in this description we wanted to point out to you that you don't need to know this content. This is just merely an example, and you might get a little confused with some of the questions because the students who would be watching this already have some background knowledge, and they already know how to go out and find financial statements to get the data that they need to perform a calculation that they're asked to do in the video. So for example, Tom put in the description here a link to the Under Armour company financial reporting, and this is where students would go and they would find, like, for example, they're looking for current assets for Under Armour, and this is where they would find that information, but they already know how to do that. So I hope no one got hung up thinking that they were supposed to know how to do something. So I'm just going to go ahead and play the first couple of minutes of this video, and you can see what it's like as the student in this experience. So I'm going to play and expand my screen here. And it tells me that at some instances in the video, there will be a pause and I'll be given some questions. So notice specifically the word quiz is not used here because we don't want this to be a summative assessment for students. We just want to kind of check their knowledge and keep them engaged as they're watching the video. So I'm going to click continue.
Hi, this is Dawn.
Yes.
Am I? Yeah. Okay. Just going back to the elementary pieces, how do I put a link in the video?
Yeah, so
For example, the Under Armour financial statements. How do you do that?
So there's not actually a way to link inside of a video. You can do that in YouTube. You can click on a video in a link and it will take you to another website. That does not work in Kaltura. That's why we put it in the description of the video.
Oh, I see. So you're just going to copy, paste it, put it in the video or the description, and then they're going to get out, click on it, and go back to it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay. So you're literally typing in the HTTP address?
Yes.
Okay.
Actually,
Thanks.
I just copied and pasted that in, Dawn.
Okay. Okay. Thanks.
Yes, I didn't type it physically.
The financial decision makers. It's called as the bankers, shareholders, vendors, just to name a few, who sit on the edge of their seat, waiting for a company to issue its financial reports. And why? Because those decision makers like to get their hands dirty analyzing companies and calculating financial ratios. Fun stuff. So in this lesson, you'll learn how to use the balance sheet to assess a company's liquidity. And upon mastering this concept, you'll be inducted into the Financial Decision Makers Hall of Fame, which sits proudly on the corner of Wall and Broad Street in Lower Manhattan. So let's get on the train. So in this lesson, what you'll learn is what liquidity is and why it's important, how to calculate two liquidity ratios, and how to analyze and evaluate liquidity of two companies, Nike and Under Armour. And as you go through this lesson, think about who else cares about liquidity. So let's review a few terms and define liquidity. Current assets, you recall, are those assets that will be turned into cash within 12 months. The quick assets, just the subset of the current assets, and is just the cash short-term investments and accounts receivable. Current liabilities, those are amounts that we owe to creditors within the next 12 months. And liquidity, what is it? Very simple, just a measure of a company's ability to pay off its current liabilities, its debt, with its current assets. The two liquidity ratios, the current ratio looks at all of the current assets and compares them to the current liabilities. The quick ratio, sometimes referred to as the acid test ratio. A hippie from the 60s came up with that term. Looks at those quick assets and compares them to the current liabilities. Hey, think of it this way. This is what liquidity is all about. You got two pockets. One has a bunch of current assets in it, say $3,000. The other pocket says, hey, how much do I owe for my mortgage payment next month, next year, or my car payment over the next year, or I have some other utility bills. Those are my current liabilities. What do you think when you see these two numbers? Do you have the wherewithal of your current assets to pay off your current liabilities? I think you would say, well, yes. And in fact, you have a 3-to-1 relationship. $3 of current assets to pay off $1 of current liabilities. So let's pause the video and let's answer a question about what we've learned so far.
So here you can see that the video pauses and the play button is grayed out. So we've set that, that property in the interactive video quiz tool so that we don't want students skipping this part of the video, because then, you know, they'll get answers within the video coming up. So that's an option for you to decide. Sometimes you might let the students skip the questions, but in this case, no, they have to answer a question and then the video will continue. So another thing to note, you can also see the questions marked in the timeline at the bottom of the screen.
Okay, now
So we're going to pause it right there because we don't want to take up any more of our time viewing the video. We want to hear from Tom. And note that the video is inside the faculty Lunch and Learn course on Blackboard, which you're all students of. So if you want to go back and check out the video again, or if you didn't get a chance to check it out, please go to the Blackboard course and take a look at that. So Tom, tell us what you've been up to.
Okay, yeah. And so why don't we just keep this conversation loose, and feel free to just interrupt anytime and ask questions. Okay, so well, what I thought I would do is just kind of go through and what my thought process was with this video, and then talk about what I think the pros are, what some of the challenges are for it, you know. So yeah, so overall what this video is 10 minutes, and I can tell you that it took me longer than 10 minutes to make, right? So, and as I mentioned, this process has been an evolution over time, over the last 6 or 7 years, and I think I'm getting a little better at it all the time. But yeah, still a ways to go. And even this video itself, I think what you'll find if you start making videos, you know, this still isn't a perfect video, but at some point we have to give in and say, you know, enough is enough, and just be comfortable with making sure we get the important concepts on there and you have a presentation that you feel comfortable with overall, but it's never going to be perfect. So as I kind of develop, you know, my lessons overall, and my students know this, is I use the learning theory from Bloom's taxonomy. And for those who aren't familiar with Bloom, right, he's an educational psychologist who kind of gave his take on how we should be learning, and Anne's posted up you know, the tiers, right? We start with the basics of, you have to remember a concept and then demonstrate an understanding of it, and then we apply the concept and analyze, evaluate, all the way up to the create level. So in this video, as you see, once I passed the kind of the entryway point, and I started out with what we're going to learn. That's you know, I started with you know what is liquidity, right? We need to know that and understand that concept, and then move on to the application of it by calculating a couple of ratios and getting those students engaged with doing something with the video. And then the third layer there, a combination of analyzing and evaluating 2 companies, Under Armour and Nike. So
And Tom, if I can interrupt for just
yeah,
a quick
okay.
sec. So for anyone who hasn't seen the video, he does in the beginning, we saw that we did that definition, that remember and understand part of liquidity in that first question. And then following that, he goes through and he shows a demonstration of applying that ratio to a company, Nike, and then the students are given a link to go out and find the real balance sheets for a real company, Under Armour, and they have to make those calculations themselves. And then they have to come back to the video and choose their, you know, correct answer. So they're actually applying that in real time while they're watching that video. And then later in the video, Tom goes on to analyze what those ratios mean and help the students evaluate which company's in better shape, Nike or Under Armour.
Yeah, and so I think it'd be important to, if you haven't had a chance to watch the video, what I'm saying might feel out of context, but once you would see the 10 minutes of video, you'll kind of tie it together. But so that's kind of, the basics of how I teach all of my classes, and this seems to resonate with students, and it's a style of teaching and a methodology I've been using for a number of years now. So as we got through the video, students are engaged with going out there online, and again, in this class, this is it's an intro to this topic of liquidity that we're talking about, but students would have had several weeks of training in the concepts of financial statements, which is our world that we're using to make these calculations of ratios. So this is an entirely new landscape for them at this point. They're familiar with the terms, and you'll notice that once I got into the video, I started with just a recap of, okay, let's review these terms we've talked about already, meaning the current assets, current liabilities, and the quick assets, and then introduce this new term, liquidity, and then showed them, well, here are these two liquidity ratios. And as in accounting, it's kind of interesting. Students come to it often thinking that there's a lot of highfalutin math, but the reality is that the level of math we use in accounting is somewhere around third or fourth grade level. I tell them, it's all we have to know how to do is add, subtract, multiply, divide, and maybe convert a decimal to a percent. But the math is pretty straightforward, as you'll note in this topic of liquidity. So then once I showed them how to calculate these ratios for Nike, then I gave them an opportunity to go out and look at a competitor. And in this case, we looked at Under Armour. So then the students pause the video, go out, make the calculations themselves, and come back and answer the video quiz on calculating the current ratio and the quick asset ratio. So then from there, we kind of raised it another level after the application, and we did a little analysis and evaluation of Nike, comparing them to Under Armour, and that's the higher level thinking within Bloom's taxonomy. And then that led to kind of the wind down of the video, because then I talked about, well, what are the major concepts that we should walk away with these with this idea of liquidity, and there were 5 major themes that I brought up. And in fact, I used at the end of that an article regarding another company, Microsoft, and talking about just because these liquidity ratios might be high, might not necessarily be a good thing. And so that was a little bit of another perspective on these ratios, because sometimes students think of them just because the ratio is a high ratio, it might mean that's really good all the time, and we learned that it's not in terms of this concept of liquidity. So where I was going there is to give them some other perspective of this liquidity, and then we just kind of wound down at the end with, okay, well, where do we go from here with this knowledge, and what's the next step in the lessons? And then also I interjected for them, bringing them back to knowing that classes are based on Bloom's taxonomy of learning, just tying that back in on where we remembered and understood this concept of liquidity, how we applied it, and how they evaluated it. And then I talked with them in the video at the end as well about where the important layers of Bloom's are for your employers. And I just kind of ended that with saying, your employer wants you to be able to remember, understand, apply these concepts, but they're really looking for you to provide them with good analytical and evaluative skills, and that's where you're going to make the most impact on them, on the organization. So that, I kind of think about, when I make these videos, I think of a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's what I try to do. And as I said, I'm up for, as I say, I haven't arrived on this. I'm working with the instructional designers all the time to get their input and trying to get better at it. But if you guys have some ideas or thoughts as you went through the video, that would be helpful too, to think about ways to improve it. Right? It's always about how do we make it better. What I hear from students is that they find the videos that I present to them very helpful, right? So I think we're doing something right, but there's always room for improvement. So I don't know, with that in mind, kind of open it up to any thoughts and questions or ideas folks have.
Hey, Tom, it's Guy.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed the video, actually, and learned a few things, which was good. One of the things I did realize, though, with my population, I would really kind of hand hold them to the link and understand that they should actually open that link before they start watching the video, or have it readily available to them, because I didn't realize until I was in the video that I needed that, and then struggled with being able to get access to it. So, but that's more about my technological kind of savviness. Anyway, I really enjoyed it. Let me just ask a question. By asking those questions, does that data collect for you in terms of people's responses, so you get an idea whether they're getting it or not?
Yeah. In fact, where we're headed with this, right, is that can get married right up the blackboard. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So what I'll be doing going forward is I start doing these videos. Is using that as, in fact, an assessment.
So at this point right now,
what's that?
So at this point right now, they're not required to answer the questions while they're watching the video?
Yeah, well, actually, this is the first video I've done in Torah with this quizzing feature.
Yeah.
Right, but going forward, as I start next semester, I'll be implementing these into my classes in a real way, and this will be part of their grade for the semester.
Yeah, I really like that concept of it. That's something that I'd love to kind of move toward quite quickly as well. So nicely done.
Yeah. So because in the past I've recorded these videos, and there's really no easy way for the accountability of them, but this kind of forces the issue a bit, so like that feature of it, and plus it kind of keeps me focused on my game as an educator, and trying to be clear as possible with these concepts. Yeah.
And in addition to that, just the grade column in the grade center, you can also look at the analytics to look by question to see, well, that remembering level question, understanding level question, 100% of the class got that one right. But then at this application level question, only 60% of the class got that right. So now let me send out an announcement to talk about that and maybe give some more guidance on how to do that step. So you can really drill down, by question. You can also drill down by student to see, how each student did on each question.
I have a question, Tom.
Yep.
So in watching your video, and by the way, did you make that through Kaltura?
Yes.
Okay. And I noticed on the bottom there was sort of your words, your conversation was on the bottom. Did you have to type that in?
No. And
so that's the auto captioning feature. It's between 60 and 80% accurate. So if you were reading through that, you probably noticed some pretty glaring errors in there. But there is a pretty simple to use tool where you can go in and edit those captions. So you would just go in and correct any of those errors yourself. There is also, if you have a student with a documented disability who requests captions for your videos, we do also have access to human captioning, which would be 99% accurate.
Okay. And I guess, Ann, I'll have to get to you because I'm not used to using Kaltura to make the video. And I'm having trouble finding it on my Blackboard site. So I'll talk to you.
Yeah, certainly.
Thank you.
Hi, this is Dawn. I think I need Kaltura for Dummies 101. So my questions are, I really liked. I'm actually jealous because you're doing this, and I don't like to admit that I'm jealous of somebody, but I am because this is way cool. So when you get ready to record this video, the Kalteras that I do show my face, and I try to do this, or it shows a PowerPoint. But how do you actually make the videos where you're going down and you're seeing the screen, and you can say, here's this ratio, and then the second line appears? I mean, the very basic thing. So, and there's probably some videos or something that people have, but I want to be you when I grow up. So, so can you tell me how to get started making these way cool videos?
Yeah. So I don't know, Ann, do you want to kick in there? I mean, basically, the truth of the matter is, right, it's very simple, because I can even do it, Dawn, and so it must be, right? So, because I get a little technophobia, Ann can attest to that. But basically, I'm sitting on my comfortable living room couch, and I'm calling up my PowerPoint presentation. I'm shutting off the camera, so it's just capturing my voice, and I'm rolling through the video and narrating. So,
and we did do some things in the PowerPoint. I've shown Tom how to animate objects on the screen so that you have one thing come on the screen, and then you click the button and the next thing comes on the screen. And we've even done things like, you saw some graphics, images.
Yeah, I like the kid in the jeans with the pockets. Yeah. So how do I learn how to do that?
Yeah, I can sit down and do a lesson with you
A
on
simple
Okay,
Google
great.
image search. You do image search, find the image and grab it if it's right free.
Yeah. Okay, so Anna, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to sit down with you because it would take all afternoon to teach me how to pluck some guy in jeans and put him in a video. Okay, so
it's not as hard as you think. Yeah.
Well, I'm sure it's not. It's just that anyway, it's
So-
just that I can't do it.
I
Yeah.
want to be sensitive to people's times.
Yep.
Time flies when you're having fun, and it is 12:30, so you are free to go at this point, but I know that Tom has some extra time, and he was willing to hang on and, answer some more questions. So if you have some more, please have at him.
And also, if you decide to use this tool, I know it's pretty time intensive, when you use it for the first time. Ann and I are at your disposal. We will help you get started. Don't worry, it's not rocket science. It's pretty simple.
Yeah, and Tom, why don't you tell us about the ums?
Oh yeah, so like that, yeah, yes. I've just said it right. I didn't say it once in my video. Yeah. So one of the things that Ann had pointed out to me as I was making videos over the last year said, be careful about that pause, and then you hear somebody say, we all do it, right? So I've been working at that skill set of trying to eliminate that pause and then saying, and I was proud that I don't think I have one of them in that video. And so it takes some skill set to get there, and I still catch myself doing it sometimes now. So, but
I just thought you edited them out.
I didn't this time. You can, and there's my right? So, yeah, so it's just a skill set that I think is important. It's been important for me to develop, and I'm still working at that.
And one of the things, if I can add to that, Tom, is that Tom practiced this video. So he actually did a couple recordings of it. And in some parts, he had started to write out a script. And I had been talking to Tom for a long time about, you got to script your videos. And, we were talking about the scalability of, well, if you script all of your videos, how much more time does that take? And, do you really have that time to be able to write out the script and then record your video? And, it's sort of a balance, because if you're practicing all those times to make it more fluid, that's about the time it would take you to write the script. And a lot of times that really helps you to focus. And Tom has gotten really laser focused in these videos. He doesn't go off on tangents. He really keeps it to whatever the topic is. And it seems like it's a very simple video, but it's actually really, really carefully thought out about how he is he is considering, what do students really need in order to learn this concept? And one of the things, we had talked about was real life experience. Adult learners need to know, how does this apply to me? Not just, I'm going to tell you these things in this video, but here's why you want to learn these things that I'm going to tell you in this video. So he explicitly stated that. And adults also need to solve problems. They can't just be given content. They need to be able to figure out, oh, okay, so what if I did this, or what if I did that? So that's why we put that problem into the video, where the students actually had to go and create their own calculations, because adults need to be able to do those things themselves rather than just be given a blanket wall of content.
Another thing I think that we missed that point when Tom and I were discussing this approach. I asked Tom, how long does it take you usually to deliver this concept of quick ratio versus regular ratio? And he said, well, it's about 45 to 50 minutes in class, if you do it in class. But on video, it's 8 minutes, So it's pretty condensed to the point.
And the students that need it can watch it more than once.
Yeah.
Correct. If you missed something, you can.
And then, the other beauty is that, this concept of the liquidity ratios hasn't changed since the 50 years I've been studying it, right? So I see using this same video in classes going forward. So I'd offer to think about that, how you can get some scalability from using the video multiple times.
And using your language, a return on investment.
Yes.
Right.
Well, it seems as though as part of the condensing of the conversation is that those questions that get asked, more likely than not, are the most frequently asked questions as it relates to those topics, correct?
Right. Yeah, that's a fair statement. And again, I'm always thinking about Bloom's taxonomy and saying, okay, do these students remember and understand the concept? Let me have a question about that. Let me get a question in about applying the concept, and then a higher order thinking of evaluating and analysis. So that's where my thinking is on the questioning.
I teach law classes, and most of them are we're either Panopto and now Kaltura. It's not a live class. So I always worry about getting the interaction, particularly when I'm asking like ethical, what's the difference between ethics and morals and things like that, particularly in public service and government law. So I think this helps. And then if anybody has suggestions about getting more student discussion, for example, what if you paused, and the problem is not everybody's watching the video at the same time, but what if you paused and said, now respond back to all of your classmates? So I'm hoping that in the future it can become even more interactive, kind of, real time, even if it's not real time. So,
Yep, and
so if there's any suggestions.
Yep, there is actually a feature in Kaltura. So in the Faculty Lunch and Learn course, I embedded that video quiz using the assessments dropdown. But if you also had that video available in the course media gallery, and the student clicked on the video and brought up the video, and then all of the other tools below it, there's actually a commenting feature where students can have a running commentary, just like you see on Facebook videos. YouTube videos. Down below YouTube videos, there's a commenting section where people can comment back and forth. So that's one way of having a discussion around the video. Another thing would be to actually embed that video right in the description of the discussion board. So you create your new discussion board and they're watching the video, and then they hit create new thread when they're done watching the video. So another point you were mentioning about the adding adding questions to some of your videos. If you're giving a lecture and you come across a point that you want the students to remember this point or really understand this, or this is something that's very important, you come to a teaching point, that's a great place to put a question in your video. And as we mentioned, you don't have to be tricked by the word quiz. It doesn't have to count as a quiz. It can just be an engagement point with the students where they're just answering a question. And one thing we didn't show you in this one is that you can actually set your video so that all of the questions that you put in your video, you can have the students download them as a PDF. And now that becomes a study guide too, as they then go on with other content.
And if I can ask, since a number of us have older videos, is it a possibility for us to go back to already existing videos that we've made and put in a question feature?
Absolutely, yes. So your old Panopto videos, if they haven't already, they are being moved into your My Media. So if you go up to the Add New button and do Video Quiz, you can select one of your old Panopto videos and you could start plugging questions in there.
And again, we can help. You know, if you want to get started, let us know. We'll get you started. Okay, it's 12:40. Thank you everybody for coming today, and we'll send you a link with the recording, and as well as to everybody else who signed up today but couldn't attend due to electricity problems. And we'll see you around, guys. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you all.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep. Thanks.